Suddenly, the protagonist woke up with no idea where he was, convinced he'd been transported to a whole new life. As soon as his fingers brushed against it, he thought everything around him was made of wood. The frantic men, convinced he was dead, shoved him into a coffin, but the sight of him standing up inside the wooden box left him completely baffled, since he still couldn't remember a single thing. Even though he was terrified, he decided the smartest thing to do was smash the wood around him to get out of the box. He started swinging his fists, only to feel sharp pain hit him back, but even as blood flowed from his hands, he kept right on punching. Then all of a sudden, something started oozing out of the wood. The suspicious and strange liquid in that deadly trap wasn't water, as the hero found out right away by tasting it. Right then, a panel window popped up to explain that this mysterious honey was a common item that gives life and heals wounds. The protagonist stood frozen in shock, unable to believe that this place was actually showing system notifications. To his surprise, his broken fist started to heal right before his eyes. With that, the protagonist punched the wood until he forgot the time, his mind full of how honey had fixed his hunger, thirst, and need for medicine. The hero punched the wood without noticing how much time had passed until it finally cracked and opened a path for him. Just like that, our trapped hero slipped right out of the wooden box. Even so, he still didn't know where he was. Honey sat beside him near a canal, while a giant rock blocked a hole in the wall. Just as he was trying to figure out what was happening, the system popped up to tell him he'd finished the tutorial dungeon. This left him completely baffled because he was stuck in dungeon 1:1, and the system said fewer than 100 people could even try to move on to the next one. After reading it, the hero panicked, realizing he had to run away from even more dangerous dungeons. The system grew even more confusing, asking him to pick a nickname for his streams. This realization hit him hard. He was trapped in a strange game and had to say, "Please save me," to show he'd lost. Just like that, the system decided his new nickname was "Please Save Me," a title that would follow him all the way until he finished dungeons 1 through 10. That's when the comment section popped up, and the very first one made fun of his username. The second person said his name was too long, so they decided to just call him PS. As the stunned young man asked if someone was watching him, other viewers jumped in to confirm that the hero was streaming right now. To see your channel's profile, just head over to the settings. Suddenly, a glowing window popped up, showing off our hero's name, rank, location, and all sorts of other details. With that, the young man stood frozen, baffled by the crowd around him and the shocking truth that he had been trapped inside that coffin for nearly 10 months. The hero asked if the guy was dead, but he explained that he was actually still alive. He then begged the viewer to send him home, only to be laughed at. As soon as he began to beg, the viewer quickly pushed him away. But the frightened young man begged for an answer, which only made the commenter angry enough to warn that keeping this attitude on stream would surely get him killed. With nothing left to lose, the headless young man slammed a button and stumbled into a secret dungeon shop that sold balloons, but the hero had no money to buy them. The hero wondered if winning would bring him home, but the viewer admitted he didn't know the answer, only that he had to do his best to meet King Yenlao, the ruler of hell. This made the young one think his dad was really gone and that this game was his only chance to come back to life. Just then, the crowd grew by a new face who immediately asked for a warm welcome. After comparing the strange show to ones back on Earth, the hero saw his chance to get some balloons and introduced himself as going known by bowing and shouting in a weird way. The crowd called him out for dropping his nickname, reminding him that he was the 100th person to escape the tutorial level and the only one who could enter the next, making him realize he wasn't the only one stuck in the game. The comments quickly turned on him, calling him an idiot for finally noticing, as they blamed his ridiculous behavior for trapping him in the box for 300 days. When he realized his audience had grown again, he begged them to help him get away, but they refused, saying they were just waiting for a warning, and even when he explained that he had punched through the wood in the tutorial dungeon, they still didn't believe him. So I showed them the broken coffin as proof of his success, leaving everyone shocked before I claimed he only had to push the door above his head to do it. Finding out the solution was so simple left the hero feeling both embarrassed and shocked. The audience asked him if he used honey to survive 300 days and heal his wounds, and he confirmed it. The entity was so thrilled by this that he sent him 7 balloons. When a young man got his first piece of money, he felt so grateful, and the viewer explained that there was a purpose behind every single item. "Please save me," thanked the audience for their amusement at his deep focus, and remembered his promise to become the grand champion. Then the entity said the young man must give his all because the dungeon was no joke. Later, he tried to saw through the window bars, but he froze in shock when he saw the first player had already made it to the next dungeon. The hero figured out that since the first one to escape got a Frank Skillbook box, everyone else would race to be first and get treats too. So he started to panic when a viewer asked him how long he'd been sawing the bars. Gonum admitted he'd been there for a week, and the viewer said that was why he was the only one left to watch him. The young man stood frozen with no clue on what to do because the giant rock was stuck in the honey drain and too big to move, leaving viewers annoyed as he had no logical idea for a solution. The final viewer decided to stop watching our hero return to his desk, insisting there must be a reason for the saw and ladder in the shop. Eventually, the bar snapped and our hero crashed to the ground. He realized his tool wasn't working well since it took 10 days to cut the second bar, and while he worried he couldn't cut 2 more, the system told him that 85 users had already escaped the dungeon. Right when he started to panic, a viewer shouted that the ruler of hell was about to catch him. After thinking for a moment, the young man climbed the ladder again, staying in the bars for a long time while the viewers watched. But right then he realized that "Please save him" was suddenly shouting from the ladder as he swung it with all his might to break it open, much to the viewer's shock. Everyone thought he had given up to madness, lost to despair and hopelessness. But even as the crowd looked on in confusion, he rubbed the wood together to start a fire, drawing laughter from some and cheers from others. As the first sparks danced on the floor, he blew on the hot wood, only for his hair to suddenly catch flame. While he screamed in agony, the crowd shouted at him to stop his crazy behavior. In an instant, the hero earned 4 balloons and picked up 2 new fans for his club. After watching his head catch fire, the young man boldly rolled himself under the boulder, tricking the crowd into thinking he had given up. To their surprise, the huge boulder started rolling. And just like that, our hero had won, watching the giant boulder crash down to the earth. He started saving him as the crowd looked on, completely baffled by what had just happened. Just as the hero dived his head into the honey to heal, the crowd shouted for answers, revealing that the boulder wasn't a rock but a turtle with shell patterns that was slowly moving. When he saw that, the hero realized the thing in his way wasn't a stone but an animal. He charged down the open path, claiming the dungeon held 4 themes and 10 symbols of longevity that left the crowd confused. As he climbed up the window, he noticed that the clues pointed to the dungeon's theme, where every item had a purpose, even if it was just a theory. Goin stood there in shock as he stepped into the treasure dungeon, a magical room that would teleport him to a new adventure in 2 hours and let him pick one special prize to take with him. Everyone stood amazed as the hero had to pick from the many items, shouting them out to claim the treasure and cheering his amazing success. "Please save me," he thought carefully before choosing his prize, knowing that every single object had its own special purpose. He wondered if having some cash would help him win the game. But the crowd refused to help again, so he checked the silver coin, only to find it was actually a copper one used at the hub that weighed 10 balloons. As the items started to disappear, everyone began to laugh at him for making such a terrible choice. The hero figured the room was full of tricks, so he checked a golden coin only to find it was actually silver and couldn't be used at the hub. The crowd started laughing at him again, just as he finally figured out that this game actually had a special area called the hub. So he snatched up a sword, charged forward with 5 strikes, and swung it wildly, convinced that this was the only way to win. Then, suddenly, a loud rumble from the turtle's belly echoed through the bright blue room. Goin started thinking about which single item he should take into the dungeon with him. As he wrote down what he saw in the room, he suddenly realized that a hidden treasure was buried beneath all the items. So he started tossing things around and hunting for real treasures while the viewers watched and commented on his moves. After searching for a long time, he ended up totally worn out, holding nothing but a silly trinket that made the crowd laugh at him. He knew he was running out of time and had to eat and sleep soon to get ready for the next dungeon. First, he spread honey on bread and ate it while the viewers laughed, but right then an animal approached him wanting a piece of his snack. Goinsum decided to feed the giant reptile, but when he reached into its mouth to grab something, the viewers screamed that he was about to lose his hand. Despite the danger, he managed to get the item free without losing any of his limbs. In his hand, he held a rare treasure known as the Orb of Capture, a magical tool that could tame any wild beast and turn it into a gentle pet once he fed it to the creature. The crowd stared in shock, unable to believe their eyes or even make sense of what they had just seen. Now that the chat window cost only 10 balloons, his very first viewer surprised him by dropping in 20. As the young man studied the glowing orb, everyone around him started talking about it, shocked to see such a powerful object in the first dungeon. Goin-sun remembered the scary monsters waiting for him, but when the crowd told him to take the turtle over the iron sword, he suddenly realized the turtle had eaten his meal, and then he screamed with joy about the dungeon's 10 symbols, leaving everyone else completely confused. After explaining the dungeon's theme once more, he insisted that the turtle he fed the rare orb was the dungeon's true master, leaving the viewers stunned and convinced it was a waste. Everyone said the turtle was about to face a terrible end. All of a sudden, it started to change, growing huge and scary before your eyes. In a flash, the hero convinced the giant spirit turtle to be his friend, leaving everyone watching completely stunned. Gong stared in shock at the giant monster he had just mastered, only to watch it shrink back down to an ordinary, child-size size. Just like that, the creature had shrunk down to a size even smaller than before. With that settled, the hero now held a common spirit that secretly hid a mythical, saliva-powered healing ability. Piss quickly guessed that mythic must be one of the top ranks in the game. His theory proved right the moment a viewer gave him 5 more balloons and started cheering for him. Now that Go has gathered 100 recommendations, he's finally free to upgrade to a bigger viewer capacity. He thanked his audience for helping him grow, and suddenly, the protagonist didn't feel so good. After chasing things like a madman until he passed out, the hero woke up to find himself sitting in a plastic chair surrounded by a bunch of chicks. With that view before him, he decided he must have dozed off at work. Goins had the tricky job of sorting the baby chicks by sex, a skill that only someone with years of practice could master. The females are nurtured until they're strong enough to lay eggs, while the males who cannot do so are sadly thrown away and killed. But right when he was tired out, something strange happened as a sudden purple glow appeared out of nowhere, proving that even male chicks had a soul. Just like that, the man who broke out of the dungeon finally opened his eyes. The hero found himself stuck in the dungeon's food storage, needing to escape without taking a single bite to his next level. Just then, I remembered the warning. Stepping into the treasure chamber would drag him right into the dungeon. He spun around, confused, realizing he'd been dreaming about his past because the chicks nearby made him think they were the food the system mentioned. The protagonist realized this room felt just like the first dungeon, except the ceilings stretched way higher than before. Please save me, as I assumed he had to crawl into that high gap, but didn't know he couldn't reach it from so far away. The crowd grew annoyed when the hero realized he was wrong about the 10 symbols of longevity, since chickens weren't even on the list. He decided that punching through the wall was the smartest idea, and the crowd loved it. After pondering for a while, he decided to check out the shop's items first. They had a thin rope, some chicken feed, and a strange thing to make things grow faster. The hero knew he had to watch over the little chicks until they grew up big and strong. He chose to build his audience first, and with a simple click, he could now support up to 20 viewers, a number that would grow as he climbed the streamer ranks. Going felt thrilled that 15 new eyes were on him, so he shouted with pride that he would no longer be the last one standing. But even after that bold claim, time went by, and some of the chicks grew up to be full-size birds. The crowd laughed at the silly name he accidentally chose. The one he wanted started weeping, imagining how the small crowd watching his stream was just laughing at him. Right as he started feeding the chickens, the bored audience called him out for wasting their time with this daily routine. But even though the hero insisted he only wanted their eggs, the crowd was convinced they were all boys. Right as he confirmed they were all girls, the first 2 users burst out of the dungeon. Everyone knew the show was about to get wild as their silly friend suddenly started panicking. And as they passed, the dungeon escapee was thrilled to see he got high-nutrition eggs that the system promised would make his body stronger. After a while, the hero finally finished his big meal of boiled eggs. Suddenly going shirtless, he once again began punching the wall. While everyone stared in awe at his strong muscles, the hero felt more driven than ever to shoot past them and leave last place behind. He struggled hard, but his mind was set on getting out of that second dungeon at last. As he kept moving forward, the crowd roared louder and the ceiling started crashing down around them. His hands were slick with his own blood. After noticing his new pet, young Gay, helping him heal, the young man came up with a brilliant idea. The hero fed the reptile chicken treats, and the crowd was totally shocked. Please save me. He wasn't sure if he should try one last time since he had fully healed, but the wall was about to crumble. But suddenly, the system warned him that only 66 more people could enter dungeons 1 through 3, and he panicked once again. As the crowd jeered at him, he crumbled down to his knees. Our hero, worn out from trying so hard, started wondering why he was even in this spooky dungeon. So he started wishing he could fly like the chicken he was raising, just for a little while. Suddenly, a wild idea struck him again, and to everyone's shock, he started tearing the feathers right off the chicken. They were even more confused when he started rolling himself in the eggs. While he explained how he used eggs to glue the feathers to himself, everyone started laughing at his silly idea. Even then, the grown man, hiding inside a giant chicken, threw himself into the sky. Driven to prove his idea right, the chicken man flew up to the top, suddenly realizing how much laughter this silly situation would surely bring. With the strength from the eggs fueling him, He soared upward, convinced he could fly. As he started flapping his wings, everyone watched in amazement before he crashed back to the ground exactly where they predicted, making him wonder how his strength had vanished so quickly, until he realized the chicken feathers must have their own life force that drained him. But then, a sudden thought hit him. After giving the honey a wicked grin, the hero made up his mind to smear it all over himself. This substance, once famous for giving life, made him surprised when he saw the feathers start to become part of his own body. Just like that, to everyone's shock, the hero turned into half chicken as he sprouted his own wings. So the young man bought a rope to hold his new extra arm steady, just as the crowd wanted him to fight the wall with them. But when he claimed he could guide them to the top, the viewers thought he was just talking about the 10 signs of longevity all over again. The young man insisted the dungeon belonged to the crane, leaving everyone puzzled since the bird was nowhere to be found. And so, as the hero threw himself into the air, he realized he had become the creature soaring upward. The hero promised that he would use the chicken's body parts to turn himself into a crane. He didn't stop there. He charged back up the hill. Everyone stared at his amazing feat as he pushed himself harder than ever to finally leave, flapping his wings up just to get free. The crowd started cheering his amazing trick with honey. As he finally arrived at his destination, the system told our hero that giving away 10 balloons would unlock a special chat feature. Just then, his very first viewer donated 50 balloons and told everyone to trust the streamer, leaving the streamer thrilled while one of the others stared in amazement. The system then told him it was time to step into the dungeon, taking him from level 1 all the way to level 4. He was stunned because he expected to go in a group 1 to 3, but he was told this difficult path was actually his reward. When the first user handed him 50 balloons again, the others whispered that he'd become a target while the king of hell watched. When the hero looked completely confused, the crowd insisted it was all just a joke. Deep inside a hidden castle at the end of a dark hallway, the most powerful being watched secret streams and couldn't stop himself from thinking you were the most fun streamer he'd seen in ages. Just as our hero got lost in his own thoughts, the audience pushed him to keep going. So he leaped down, leaving the confused onlookers wondering how he'd ended up back in Dungeon 1-2. The young man told the shopkeeper he wanted to buy chicken feed, so the birds wouldn't start laying eggs. The hero then said the extra food would go into his inventory, so the viewers knew it was meant to feed the turtle. Everyone was shocked by his clever trick of taking some chickens along for extra food. Just as he flew through the air with a chicken in his mouth, a spectator pointed out that he couldn't leave Dungeon 1 for Dungeon 2, a fact the hero knew all too well. As he touched down, he made sure he hadn't missed the rule, explained that it only ran from 1:12 to 1 o'clock, and confirmed he could still bring food in his Zone 14. Just like that, the hero felt a surge of joy as he realized he had taken first place among all 71 participants for Dungeons 1 through 4. While the hero felt proud that his guess was right, I was blown away by his cleverness since he was the first to slip into this dungeon, and now our brave friend will finally get his F-rank skill box. Before he could take the gift, he had to painfully peel himself off the sticky feathers that had fused to his skin with honey magic. The young one got a standard rank box that offered a slim 5% chance to unlock an advanced rank. As soon as they opened it, everyone just wanted to find a powerful way to dodge attacks. Still, everyone agreed that getting a normal power to help him focus was a pretty good reward. With a swift nod, the hero chose to take it as it came. So he opened the book, and magic started flowing into his mind. Just like that, our hero gained a new power that grows stronger with stamina and reaches its peak once fully charged. He felt a wave of amazement wash over him as he realized how crystal clear and light his mind had become. So he stepped into the dungeon and found himself bathed in purple light. As he made his way forward, PS became fascinated to discover that this dungeon was a secret escape route used by prisoners, one that required both clever thinking and strong will to cross. After quickly realizing the dungeon was deadly, he bought the only armor he could afford, only to have everyone mock him for being a cheap choice. So, our hero stepped into the dark dungeon, unaware that a giant axe was already swinging down to crush him. Without the hero quickly using his new skill, the axe sliced so close to him it felt like death had only missed by a hair. But the hero was left trembling with fear as the crowd kept pointing out how lucky he really was. This made him see that the road ahead was full of hidden traps waiting to catch him. Just then, my friend felt something coming his way and begged me to save him. He was suddenly struck in the shoulder by a car. The crowd started mocking the hero, pointing out how deadly that arrowhead would be if it ever landed on him. But even as he fought his way through, he knew the strength he had now just wasn't enough. As the weapon dropped into someone else's hands, the hero apologized to his viewers, saying the show would be a bit boring for now. Not that the hero had eaten a huge pile of eggs. His speed had picked up. Seeing this, he pretended to cry and thanked the audience for sticking with him, a gesture they all knew was true. By munching on 20 more eggs, the hero boosted his own muscle strength and pumped up his kids' levels at the same time. But he knew he'd won and immediately ran forward with his chickens in hand, leaving the crowd scratching their heads. So he tapped into his level 2 skill, strength, and focus. The hero swiftly ran away from the axe he had already fought. When arrows flew at him, he threw his chickens out of the bag, and the crowd shouted at him for being cruel because they saw he was using them as a shield to stop the bullets. The young man knew full well that what he was doing was absolutely wrong. Then, all of a sudden, he sensed something hurtling straight toward him. He used his bare hands to catch something incredibly long just before it was too late. No one expected that, and everyone stood there in shock. And just like that, the chicken man grabbed a spear to block the flying arrows. Even so, he still got hit in the back by one of the flying things. As long as he stayed determined, he knew running was the only way to win. So he burst out of the dungeon. After struggling hard, he suddenly saw a huge sword flying right at him. So at the very last second, he chose to try blocking the blow with his spear. The crowd knew full well that this was a terrible mistake. Everyone froze in horror as they saw the young man's feet being cut. But the crowd breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that what they had just seen was only a fading echo. And so, our hero made it there at last. Now, he stood in a place where it was safe. He was so happy he could finally breathe again after that terrible, deep Parker. Out of nowhere, he hit the floor hard. His new talent drained his strength so much that he had no energy left to give. So the hero finally understood he had just touched sand for the very first time inside that terrible game. Later on, he woke up to find his viewers shouting at him for sleeping so long. Once he stood up, the dungeon escapee found himself staring at a huge structure. It was so tall it stretched way past the height of dens 1 and 2. Finally, the hero tried to shove the door open, but it wouldn't budge. Just as he realized he needed a key, the very first arrow he tossed aside turned out to be it, startling him right before another guest reminded him that he had asked them to keep that arrow. The young man said he would never step foot in the Parker again, and that news left his fans feeling let down. As Go and Sun pondered how every past dungeon had a clever escape route, they worried they might never find the right key. Even so, he checked and found that only the first arrow would open the door. Right then, a streamer called Instant Beauty walked into the dungeon, and our hero felt shocked to see she was always the first one to beat every level. When a new streamer joined the dungeon, the store got a fresh item, the channel messenger, which let our hero send 10 messages to other streamers for the price of just 1 balloon. So, he snatched it up right away. The hero then grabbed this new item and used it right away. Just as she stepped into the dungeon, wondering what strange nonsense waited inside, a notification suddenly popped up for her. Instant Beauty was startled when a total stranger tried to send her a private message. The little one beamed with joy when the girl quickly asked if he was truly one of the 3 strongest dungeon escapists. As Instant Beauty whispered his nickname with a mocking smile, she secretly wished for a way to save him. Just as she stepped onto the path, she felt something approaching her. A key arrow suddenly struck the lady in the crash that happened right next to her on the ground. Instant Beauty grabbed it, her eyes wide with wonder at the strange car. When the car hit the streamer and hurt her head while rude comments poured out, she snapped, flung the arrow aside, and quickly calmed herself before the camera so her real personality wouldn't show. The hero figured the lady had other things to do, so he let her go. Instant Beauty told me how the arrow struck her. But when the lady realized he had figured out she'd just stepped onto the path without telling her, she yelled at him for not warning her first. Instant Beauty was left curious as the other streamers started asking her about the arrowhead's shape. But to her surprise, she agreed to speak only if he told her another secret. Even though the hero didn't care about the car, the girl decided to question the young man by first telling the truth about why she had thrown away the arrow. He let out a chuckle that quickly turned into a full laugh because he had totally expected that reaction. As his laughing crowd shouted his Earth name, which means death, he was called Go. Instant Beauty, who loved counting her balloons, got mad when the hero tried to make a deal. When asked about the deal, the hero admitted it was just swapping secrets, which made the lady smirk and call him hopeless, causing him to get annoyed as the audience started bullying him again. But Instant Beauty froze when she realized the arrow she had just tossed aside was actually the key to unlocking the dungeon's exit. She quickly started pleading, "Please save me," as she realized she was truly desperate. So the streamer started looking for the arrow she had just lost. Just as suddenly, she slipped off the path but caught herself at the very last second. As she landed back on the ground, she saw that the person who knew the most was truly the most powerful. In the end, Instant Beauty chose to accept the power of shamelessness. So she softened her voice and gently asked the hero about the arrow. Before sharing any secrets, the protagonist asked how she managed to sneak past the third dungeon, and Instant Beauty explained that she bought a rope to climb the wall while wondering if he had taken the stairs. Hearing this made him understand that the only path to dungeons 1 through 3 was by overcoming an obstacle, so the dungeon must be about mountains, which is one of the 10 signs of a long life. The hero smirked when the woman asked about the sad arrow, and her panic grew as he revealed it was the key to opening the next dungeon. In a panic, Instant Beauty begged to see the arrow one last time, but the hero refused, only for her to then ask if he wasn't struggling with the same fear. But the hero insisted that even though he'd tossed the key away, he was perfectly fine with it, which just made the girl scream in frustration. As he wrapped up the talk, Goinsum started studying the symbols he had already seen while trying to figure out what this dungeon's special mark looked like. But as he tried to match his surroundings to one of the symbols, he grew frustrated because none of the other 7 symbols fit this place at all. Instant Beauty felt annoyed that she'd fallen for the man's trick and left without any new clues after telling him she lost her key. But she pressed on anyway because every dungeon had more than one way to find the exit. She was the only one who remembered how men always treated her with kindness. Instant Beauty, also called Euhasian, knew her charm could make any man eager to help her, while her viewers fumed in anger. Among them, the Prince of Heaven handed her 15 balloons to soothe the girl, who faked gratitude while crying fake tears. An old man named Fear, who felt the protagonist acted like a victim, gave a passionate 20-year-old to her as thanks. Just then, her biggest fan burst into the chat after hearing the news, demanding answers, and the lady was instantly thrilled to see him since Queen Bee was the only one who'd ever earned that title by sending her 1,000 balloons and watching her for 200 hours straight. Even as he sent 100 balloons, the fanatic fan insisted he was trying to save himself from bullies who had returned to tear him apart. Yuen accepted his help while quietly wondering how men always try to look strong. She took a deep breath and studied the escape tunnel used by prisoners once more. She guessed that the other streamer hadn't left the dungeon levels yet, because he still didn't have his key. With that, she slipped off her armor and started undressing, leaving her thirsty fans over the moon. The people who thought the show was cool got scared when they realized what crazy thing she was about to do. Just like that, Instant Beauty gathered her courage and leaped from the path straight into the honey. Even after staring at the shop for a long time, the protagonist still couldn't guess what kind of dungeon it was. With that thought, he started to doubt if wasting his arrow was the only way out of the dungeon. While far away on the path, 2 pairs of hands gripped the edge of the road. That was the moment the theory of Instant Beauty was proven true. The lady stepped right to the edge of the path, crossing without setting anything off and winning her crowd's praise for her clever trick. So, she told us how the idea came to her, right after she took a tumble while looking for the key arrow. The only problem we faced was that the road stretched on for a long, exhausting distance. Even with all that, the streamer stood her ground, refusing to let go until the very end. Goen desperately remembered the old dungeons, trying to figure out which of the 10 symbols of longevity matched this place. So, he started to carefully look around him to figure out what was going on. But when the young man realized he still couldn't figure it out, even after trying to use the shop items, his frustration led him to snap his arrow pen in half. But the moment he did, the dungeon escapee saw the truth. The arrow was made of bamboo. Meanwhile, Instant Beauty found herself completely drained. But she refused to stop until she reached the end. But by the end, she couldn't finish it and had to climb back up, so she sat down to catch her breath just as something shot right in front of her. Instant Beauty felt the sharp sting of an arrow sinking into her shoulder. And right then, she tumbled off the trail, much to the horror of everyone watching. They returned to the exit of the dungeon where the seal stood. As the hero tucked bamboo arrows into the sweet honey, the crowd started shouting that he just keeps reaching for that healing juice. The streamer told everyone that the honey holds a special life force, planted 2 arrows in the ground, and explained that the dirt meant he planned to grow bamboo to climb up to the top, but the viewers suddenly started wondering how tall an adult bamboo plant could actually get. Just as they told him it would never be high enough, our hero was left crushed and heartbroken. As the girl sank into the honey, her beauty melted away like sugar in warm tea. This memory brought her back to her days at the martial arts dojo, where a stern sensei challenged his students on how to survive among tigers, and she remembered how Johansson answered by saying you must become the beast yourself. The teacher was thrilled by the answer, proving him right that every problem has a solution. She still asked her father how to turn herself into the beast. And with that, the moment of beauty finally reached the bottom of the honey river. Back at the door, our hero stared at the tiny bamboo, wondering how he could grow a towering tree 20 times taller than the average one. After grabbing a loaf of bread, the hungry hero found a special accelerant that made all living things grow 100 times faster, except pets, which sparked an idea to use it on fast-growing bamboo, though he wasn't sure how tall the plants could get. Even though the other contestants had already stepped into the dungeon, the hero had no choice but to follow, so he grabbed his growth potion, splashed his plants, and watched them shoot up instantly. Meanwhile, Instant Beauty floated back up to the surface. After catching her breath, she carefully pulled the arrow from her shoulder. Johansson was driven by an even stronger need to leave the dungeon, willing to turn into a beast just to keep swimming through the thick honey. While the madman clung to bamboo that shot up toward the sky, the crowd cheered at his amazing feat. He felt glad that the many eggs he ate had built up his muscles, so he could keep gripping the thick bamboo that was getting harder to hold. Just like that, our hero reached the entrance to dungeons 1 through 5 and became the first to conquer a dungeon once more. The crowd held their breath in shock as the streamer kept gripping the growing bamboo instead of jumping across the bridge. Goin said he kept climbing because he had spotted Hannibals nearby, which meant they were the path he needed to reach a hidden item. The crowd gasped when they realized the streamer was correct right after he walked into a hidden trap. So he quickly opened it, dug through the secret space, and found the hidden treasure. The protagonist promised the eager crowd he'd show them his new find once he crossed the bridge, which was easy since he was right above it. So the madman released the trap and landed safely like a superhero, apparently because eggs turned people into Superman. With that, the hero took a look at his new treasure. The rare heavenly bamboo fruit, which grows only on heavenly bamboo trees, is the phoenix's favorite food and can greatly restore the strength of even the toughest body. His talent won the crowd's applause, but one person warned that he might never see the phoenix again. So he tucked the secret stash away in his inventory. He started to wonder if the door in front of him was another trap, but he quickly tossed the idea aside, chose to ignore it, and went ahead anyway. Just like that, Go and Zung felt the sweet taste of success after reaching dungeons 1 through 5, only to be shocked when his climb to the next level was suddenly cut short by a steep fall. We returned to dungeons 1 through 4. A sat on the stairs, wincing as she tried to shift her sore shoulder back into place. Her wound was fixed by the honey she kept on her. The shocked woman, convinced the stairs led to an exit, dove in again to handle an urgent matter, only to instantly find the key arrow she had thrown away while underwater. She felt thankful too, because the glowing rocks at the lake's bottom made her job so much easier. After a fast search, they found the arrow. The girl stepped out of the glowing liquid, smiling with pure satisfaction. She grabbed the arrow, climbed the stairs, and calmly reached the top to grab the key and take her escape path from level 1 to 4 again. Back in the dark dungeon where our troubled hero is suffering, let's return to his story. The hero let out a loud scream as he tumbled through a narrow tunnel and banged his head hard. And right when it looked like that terrible slide would go on forever, I finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel and was saved. With that settled, he shifted his stance to land safely, only to find himself in a strange and unfamiliar place. Much to his surprise, a bright full moon lit up the dark dungeon. Meanwhile, Instant Beauty heard that the hero was the first of 50 players to reach the goal, so he'd get a surprise skill box. Seeing him escape once again before anyone else, she simply had to admit he had real potential. Even so, the fierce tiger pushed itself harder to close the gap and catch up before he could escape. Instant Beauty knew everyone on her floor felt the same fierce rivalry, and she was right when a green-haired player got mad at her and another tried to dodge traps by walking on the very edge of the path. The girl who said her cape saved her life started to wonder about the crazy speed of Please Save Me, while P.S., happy about his 900 balloons and hidden treasure, decided to save his fruit for later before unlocking a new skill called Iron. Well, that left everyone amazed. Seeing how much his viewers loved it, the young guy thought he'd just found something amazing. So, he picked it up right away, not even stopping to think about it. When your Iron will reaches its peak, it grants you the power to double your strength for 180 seconds right before you finally die. The hero stood stunned as the crowd, who had just fooled him, claimed he'd ended up exactly like them once he tried that trick. Just as the hero discovered the skill could kill him, the crowd cheered for its future power, making him giddy before they teased him, and his frustrated bully fled in confusion. Inzong was stunned to realize the system let him call in a manager. The hero checked the Sansa River TV store and saw that the options were meant to give the player control, even though many viewers were begging to be brought to life. Even so, our hero turned back to thank the one who had given him balloons and kindness right from the start. So when asked to pick a manager, the hero shouted out self-reflection his very first idea, a choice that everyone instantly understood. The system told our hero that he had to climb the B ranks before he could call more managers to his side. And so it began when a giant beam of light showed up before our hero, revealing the manager, which made the old man wonder if this was the same thing that had happened to him before. Our hero stared in shock as he realized his manager wasn't Korean, just like the rest of the crowd who now understood that the true lesson on SDYXTV belonged to Sansa River, not self-reflection. The hero was also curious about the old man's strange outfit. This made him wonder if they could really talk to each other. Self-reflection gently asked the hero if he felt disappointed that he was now an old man from a different land, but the hero politely said no. After saying that, the old man introduced himself by his username and told the protagonist that he used to go by the name Socrates. The hero stood stunned, realizing he was face-to-face with a famous Greek thinker who pointed out that his shock proved he'd never met a dead person before. The young man claimed this was his first time meeting the dead, then paused to wonder why he could speak Korean so well. The old man explained that he needed hobbies, since spending 2,000 years in that place had made him so ancient that the viewers just laughed at him. The protagonist was baffled that Socrates stayed so long without escaping, until the old man burst out laughing, mocking the idea that they were in hell and insisting the name hell fit Earth much better. Socrates showed how families spend a huge amount of money on a person from the moment he is born all the way through college. Even if fate grants him a top job, he'd still be too poor to buy his own home, and when his friends bought the coffin he'd be buried in, everyone would mock him, leaving him in misery, which is exactly what Goins realized. But when the young man asked the old one if he could look at another form, Socrates, and the viewers soon saw that he was annoyed by his age. Right as the old one started mocking the young one and arguing, the fans loved watching it. A loud noise from behind made our hero jump in surprise. To his shock, a rotting beast started drooling when it saw him, and to the streamer's horror, the sent creature lunged to bite his arm. The philosopher told him to throw it away before anything else got hurt. So he grabbed it by the head to tear the teeth from his skin before smashing it into the dirt. Gown started wondering about the attacker, which surprised the old man since the attacker was clearly a zombie. Self-reflection explained that the undead would start moving again in 30 minutes unless its head was destroyed, which really annoyed the hero. Socrates warned the hero to run from the undead while crossing the dungeon, noting the hero was bleeding heavily, so the hero grabbed his turtle from his bag to help. While he said the potion would heal his wound to pay back for the food, the crowd shouted that he was just feeding his pet chicken. Gohan was stunned to see his health bounce back so quickly before he realized his clothes were in terrible shape. So he dropped his heavy armor to grab the spare clothes from his stash, all while Socrates teased him for admitting he was ugly, a point even the ghostly crowd agreed on. The young man rested the healing turtle on his shoulder, knowing it would be incredibly useful. He peeked into the shop wondering what weapon to pick, and when asked if he knew how to fight with a weapon, he honestly admitted he was a complete beginner. Socrates joked that he'd buy the spear since it's cheap, simple to use, and the very first weapon ever, noting that swords need lots of practice and bows only work from far away. So all that was left was to grab the best spear, which cost a whopping 800 balloons. Socrates, who admitted they knew nothing about the dungeon, suggested grabbing a cheap bamboo spear, but the crowd rejected it because it was too weak. The rusty spear was suggested, which annoyed the audience again since they knew the iron version was superior and only cost a bit more. Just as he was reaching for the metal blade, the crowd shouting pushed him to grab the heavy steel spear instead. The grumpy hero gave in to their demands once more, only for the crowd to hiss at him and demand a better spear. Though he was ready to buy the most expensive weapon, the users stopped him one last time, and his annoyance vanished when they suggested getting the manager to buy the spear instead. So, he politely begged the manager for the item, but got such a scary glare that he ended up buying the 800 balloons himself after they laughed at his bad begging. Goenon was thrilled to find a diamond spear in the dungeon treasure room that hit twice as hard as his old iron sword and even flew through the air with extra power when he threw it. Now that he held the spear, the crowd cheered his commanding presence, with some saying his strong build was the reason. As Socrates noted that night was almost here, the hero urged them to move on. The system told them to gather in the hexagon before they could step into the dungeon. It turned out he could pick his own challenge level, from easy to hard, and since the bigger the challenge, the greater the reward, our hero immediately decided to go for it. Before he could even speak, the old man insisted that the challenge be set to the hardest level possible. The hero tried to make sense to the philosopher, who kept asking the same hard questions while pretending his words meant nothing, because he was just a manager. Just as he was about to choose the easy mode, the system suddenly upgraded the dungeon to advanced exactly as the old man had asked, leaving him wide-eyed in shock, and then his own thoughts turned on him for running away from the challenge and missing out on the amazing rewards. So, our heroes were whisked away to dungeon levels 1 through 5, a haunted place where many escape paths turned deadly under the watchful gaze of the full moon, leaving only the strongest and wisest to survive. The hero loved how the dungeon fit 4 people, and the old man showed him that this meant he could bring more allies along. Just then, the hero was told to watch out as a horde of undead jumped out and charged straight for the young. God tried to protect himself by throwing his spear. The hero fought hard to kill as many zombies as he could. Once the butchers had finished their work, the crowd warned the hurt spearmen about the coming aerial attack. Suddenly, a flying zombie kicked him in the face, knocking the streamer down and leaving him helpless against the undead. Just as he thought his end had finally arrived, he saw the disappointed old man floating among the zombies, leaving him stunned, right before everything changed. Then the old man's spirit stepped inside the young one, taking over his body. The crowd was amazed until the ones ready to eat the streamer were blasted away, and then the 2,000-year-old Socrates took control of the body to show off his skills to the hero. As the zombies surged forward, the Greek philosopher stood ready and told the young one to watch him carefully. When the first beast lunged at him, Socrates ducked just in time, then spun to smash his weapon into the monster's back, leaving the crowd impressed. Just as another monster lunged to grab him from behind, the grandpa planted his feet, swung with all his might to slice the creature's head clean off in a single blow, and the crowd erupted in cheers, stunned by what they had just seen. Then the old man turned to speak with the body's true owner, praising his sharp reflexes, keen eyes, and the strong muscles he built from eating so many eggs. Socrates taught the young fighter to dodge before striking back, just like a boxer, because an undead that misses its hit can't easily get ready for another one. Just then, the next group of zombies lunged at the young meat. The hero felt puzzled when the old man told him to get his weapon ready. Socrates insisted that since he had already shown the boy how to handle the dead, it was time for him to finally take control of his own body. As a monster lunged, the hero dodged and stabbed it right before the amazed crowd. But even as he kept tormenting the night creature, the crowd started calling him out for ignoring everyone else. Feeling a surge of power, the protagonist smiled as he realized his strength had finally reached level 3. Just as the chat urged him to watch his back, the demons he had slain began to put themselves back together. The hero was furious, but they told him they'd keep fighting until he was dead and handed him holy water to use. The hero thought using the holy liquid was a smart move, especially after the mocking viewer warned him it wasn't for drinking, so he wisely saved most of it. But when the drop touched the zombie, it suddenly woke up, sending the hero into a terror that only made the crowd laugh. So, in a flash of panic, he splashed holy water into the beast's mouth, turning it instantly to dust. The protagonist started panicking when he saw the huge price of the holy water, realizing he needed a whole bottle to kill a zombie and that he could only buy 15. The zombies were closing in. Socrates told the young one that a person who knows a lot is always strong. As he asked the philosopher to explain his ideas, the narrator began to paint a picture in his mind of the man, trying too hard to sound important. The old one then pulled the pet turtle from the young man's inventory and explained that it came from the black tortoise's long family line. As soon as the animal touched the ground, the shocked creature's terror matched the audience's shock. The pet started showing off brand new powers that left his owner speechless as it suddenly swallowed the whole army of zombies. This made the streamer realize his pet was a black tortoise, a yin spirit that perfectly opposes the yang energy of the vermilion bird, just as Socrates said. In other words, this creature was a beacon of light in the darkness of the undead. So the old man, praised as a great storyteller and historian, decided to simplify it for the young man by explaining how the turtle absorbed evil energy and released good souls to heaven, a comparison to photosynthesis that the philosopher and the rest of the audience found simple and laughable as it finished its meal. The turtle's owner admitted he didn't realize it was a magical creature that made the man watching the ancient stream wish he hadn't fed a chicken. The son stepped forward to apologize for his errors, a moment that brought Socrates and the crowd joy because he finally admitted what he had done wrong. At first, the hero thought self-reflection was just a helpful friend and thanked him for all his advice, but Socrates said that kind of help was useless. The young one then asked for a way out of the dungeon, so the man from ancient Greece told them the story of the Maze of Thebes. The hero got the idea to leave breadcrumbs that the strange creatures wouldn't eat, just like Socrates suggested, and quickly used them to find his way out. Although the audience compared the scene to Hansel and Gretel, the lunatic suddenly got a warning that Instant Beauty had just walked into the dungeon. As the hero stepped into the maze, he started to worry that Instant Beauty was trying to escape the dungeon by herself, especially since she'd been stuck in there for 48 hours without a single word. Even though 5 players were needed to make it work, he decided to reach out to her first, only to change his mind at the last moment because he feared she might betray him. And so he and his manager kept walking, but Gaon also noticed that the moonlight in the dungeon was fading while the moon itself seemed frozen in place. He also figured out that as long as he stayed away from the monsters, they wouldn't come after him. Up until now, the beasts could only find their way by sniffing the air. The streamer noticed a huge crowd of monsters and turned to head elsewhere. The philosopher stubbornly faced the danger head-on and tried to convince others to save their strength, which made Socrates snap at him for always looking for the easy way out. Later, our hero took the easy path he picked, but after walking for an hour, he hit a dead end, which made the old man he had ignored very happy. Goins argued that monsters were at the scene, so the philosopher explained that there must be a reason for their strange gathering. Just then, the hero saw that the breadcrumbs he had left behind had completely vanished, and it left him horrified. The hero guessed the monsters were the culprits, but Socrates said monsters don't eat bread, which only made the hero even angrier. But right then, he heard a strange voice that turned out to belong to a human. The heroes honored the truth that this was instant beauty, and their doubts were proven right. Just like that, please save me, for instant beauty had finally met its match. Yvonson felt curious about the top player who depended mostly on strength, since she found she had a nice body instead of the bulky, monstrous figure she had imagined. Just then, our hero realized the girl must have a lot of Beluvenamstein, and she was wielding that indestructible sword that was worth about 1,600. Socrates said the lady was clearly taken over by her boss. As the crowd laughed at the old man's shy reaction, the girl teased him about liking younger women, which made him very unhappy. So the philosopher asked the streamer to question instant beauty about the missing bread, just as Yuansen stepped in to let her speak first. So the hero asked if she'd eaten any breadcrumbs lately, a silly question that made the girl angry. And when he pressed her again, she exploded in rage to tell him she wasn't so poor she'd do that, insisting she still had plenty of leftover bread from the dungeon, which the crowd agreed with since she was clearly the richer one of the two. Go told Johansson that no one escapes sin and that only redemption can make a person worthy of life, and the manager agreed. To the philosopher's surprise, a young person only 2,000 years old told him to keep quiet. This sparked a huge fight between him and the instant beauty, and they started shouting insults at each other. By the time it was all over, the girl was furious, but she immediately spotted a tiny turtle perched on the hero's shoulder and hurriedly asked him about it. Goins explained that his pet was actually a mystical tortoise, but the girl didn't care about that detail and kept accusing it of being the gluten that ate the breadcrumbs. The hero told everyone that as a magical creature, he doesn't eat bread anyway, and even if he did, he would have stopped it, so the fans just made fun of him for feeding him chicken feed. The girl was furious to be blamed for a pet's sudden attack, a shocking event that fans say was the first time anyone had ever made her angry. With that settled, the tiny turtle started yelling at the brave traveler, and the crowd loved it. Instant Beauty called out to her boss, Queen Bee, for help, watching her argument fall apart. To her shock, she learned the philosopher knew her manager very well and hated him just as much as she did. Socrates told the girl to call her boss, who had been causing a lot of trouble lately. The hero chose to believe the girl's story that she hadn't eaten the crumbs, which left her furious because she was telling the truth. Still, the hero chose to apologize for his earlier rude words, which actually made the girl feel a little happier. The streamer said the dungeon only fits 4 people, so everyone needs to team up to beat it. Johansson admitted that she had come up with the same thought. The hero suggested taking the easy road away from the monster, but the lady chose to fight since they must have a reason to meet. Socrates admitted that even his new friend made better sense than him, so they kept moving forward. Later, the crazy man told the crazy girl that zombies only use their noses, which she already knew. He was left in total awe by her amazing ability to solve puzzles and her mind that worked like a supercomputer. Then, it was suggested that they slay a number of demons equal to the number of themselves. And so, the lady sprinted forward and slashed her first enemy's head off with her unbreakable sword. Her powerful speech left the spearman completely stunned. The tiger lady leaps high into the air and slashes a zombie in half. Even though he was soaked in blood, his instant beauty never changed. As her newest victim screamed in agony, Goins pushed himself to slaughter more demons than she could, as he tapped into his 3rd level of power to charge straight into the horde of undead. And so he drove his blade into the first zombie with such skill that the girl stood there, completely amazed. Akira smirked and told her to thank him later, which only made her angrier before he turned his attention to the next enemy, sliced it in half with one swift swing, and raised the protagonist's kill count by 1. Sigmi's incredible show had the crowd comparing him to Xiao Yin, a streamer known for his adventures on Chang'an and Sands River. And so the hero bowed to the crowd, thanking them for sticking by his side through the battle. The tiger lady smiled and thanked her fans for their kind gift. After the fight, our spearman was puzzled to find that the box the lady told him to open was exactly what the zombies had been trying so hard to protect. So he opened the box and found a strange scroll that was actually a map to the dungeon's exit, which would soon become a place to attract zombies. Gao chose to use it, but a lady stopped him, warning that doing so would turn them into targets for monsters. But right then, one of the downed zombies started to twitch. The streamer chose to stash the map for a rainy day. Then the girls said they should share the cost of the holy water needed to slay the monsters. This made the protagonist give a smug grin as he asked how many bottles she had, and she said 5. The hero offered to clean up in exchange for some holy water, which made the lady realize he wanted the precious liquid just to quench his thirst. Gowans asked if they had a deal, and Suga Hansen agreed to let him wipe out the undead. With that, the little turtle was set down on the ground and instantly started its neat trick. The sudden beauty left them shocked, so the hero told them his pet was descended from a black tortoise. The mystical turtle started devouring the undead, eating all the zombies in an instant with her super speed until just one was left. But then the hero started wondering why the undead could attack so perfectly even though they only used their sense of smell. Just as the turtle was about to finish its snack, its master suddenly stopped it, sparking curiosity in Ollie since the monster seemed ready to strike, only for him to reach into his inventory instead, leaving her even more puzzled. When asked about it, the streamer explained that the object in his hand was heavenly bamboo fruit, a rare item packed with incredible life energy. So the special fruit ended up in the manager's hands. Asked to stand beside a lady, the philosopher was left baffled, unable to guess what the young man was thinking. Suddenly, the zombie launched himself forward one more time. As the dead man charged at his target to demand answers, a zombie suddenly jumped out and attacked him. The angry Greek punched the monster, proving it was already dead. But the monster struck one more time, forcing the tiger lady to jump in and chop its head off so it would fall dead to the ground once again. Socrates was confused at first by the zombie's sudden attack, but he quickly figured out the real reason behind it. The hero nodded to his own worries and said that these creatures didn't sniff us out, but instead felt the energy of life. And when he showed them, this would let them read the map in peace. A plan began to form. The manager knew he had to carry the fruit with him to lead the monsters away. The Greek questioned the Korean if he was truly willing to give up something as precious as the heavenly bamboo fruit, but the hero declared that he would not be sacrificing it. Once, the philosopher would munch on just a tiny bite and wander the dark dungeon until his life force finally ran out. Gung thought his plan to trick the monsters with the manager was perfect, but Socrates still said no, leaving the young one stunned. And so, when questioned about his refusal to help, deep thinking convinced him that the queen bee needed to act as bait too. So he pushed the streamer to call her manager and split the job, and the hero was totally on board with that idea. So, after that, they asked Queen Bee to make her appearance. And that's when the one from ethics finally showed up. As soon as he appeared, the old man knew his fears were real. Since they knew each other, Plateau, who followed Socrates, showed up. Even though the master and disciple pretended to be overjoyed to be reunited, the crowd thought their acting looked a bit strange. Instant Beauty was stunned to learn that her boss was actually a world-famous Greek thinker. Socrates instantly shot back at his students for the things he'd been doing off of their national television. The master knew his student wouldn't have the guts to face him when they met after death. When Plato asked the old man why he was there, the man said it was his hobby shared with his student, but then he told the younger one that asking a girl to twerk just to pass time wasn't okay, which made everyone laugh. The old man gave his student 10 balloons to test his idea of platonic love, which made the crowd see the twisted side of him that his philosophy tried to hide. Instant Beauty was furious with him for lying to her, even though he was a huge star. Plato insisted that his old life on Earth didn't matter anymore, because he was now a brand new, loyal servant at her feet, ready to earn his teacher's fist. Instant Beauty paused the ancient chaos just to vote for a trap. But the old man insisted there was no choice to make, since the answer was clear the instant her boss stepped forward. And so, since he had full control over the other philosopher, self-reflection declared that Queen Bee would act as the bait while he stayed safe inside the hero's body. And the streamers were told to burn the map right into their minds. Gohan didn't know how long the map would stay open while his ally urged him to hurry, and so the cursed map finally opened. To the young one's surprise, things turned out to be far more complicated than expected. The system shouted a warning that 73 monsters were just 20 seconds away. But as they rushed to memorize their lessons, the system suddenly screamed that over 1,000 monsters were charging at them, leaving the kids completely stunned. Instant Beauty told the hero to shut the map, leaving him baffled since she seemed to have it burned into her memory. So, he hurriedly did exactly what he was told before handing the life energy fruit to the younger manager to eat. So, Plato took one quick bite and dashed off to play the part of the bait. The philosopher knew that if they caught him, he'd face a very painful mess. So, he took off running as fast as he could, driven by a desperate need to survive and exact revenge on his master. Once everything was settled, Instant Beauty gave directions, but the hero still didn't believe them. So the furious Johansson declared that she was a star at the Korean university. And with that, she started to guide them forward. They both sprinted for the door, following the path she had memorized. After winding through the maze for a while, the streamers finally reached the exclamation mark on the map, confirming to the lady that the exit was just around the corner. And once the final straightaway ended, the goal was right before our eyes. But the moment they stepped on it, the system told them this hexagon led to the dungeon's waiting room, a place they were no longer allowed to enter. The streamer was stunned to find themselves back at the very start. While both were confused, the hero accused Instant Beauty of trying to sneak past him to take first place, but she insisted it wasn't her intention. As he claimed people couldn't be trusted, Johansson insisted she had no hidden agenda. But then the hero spotted something strange. The breadcrumbs he left behind disappeared again. With that, the hero finally understood what was going on, prompting the swordsman to push him to explain that it all came down to symmetry. When the girl looked confused, he quickly sketched a map of the dungeon on the ground to help her understand. He explained that since the dungeon was perfectly symmetrical, he could swap the start and end points without anyone ever knowing the difference. Even though the girl felt it was unfair, the hero told her it was just like the old dungeons. His manager was so impressed by this discovery that he praised him. Gaung struck the philosopher who refused to help them even though he knew the truth, explaining that revealing the answer would have led to his severe punishment. The boy discovered that the man was hiding inside him to avoid pointless hard work, a move that made the fans see him as just a troll. The young man understood they had to cross the whole map after the girl said it was doable because she had the way memorized. But it wouldn't help to see how the exit and entrance were swapping spots. Just then, the exclamation mark lit up like a flare. The system told them that hanging out near the entrance was really bothering the Great Spectre, a terrifying creature our hero had never even heard of. The moonlight faded, freeing the monsters to move with newfound confidence. The streamer stared at the system's warning that only the hole in the center would save them, leaving him completely baffled. But right then, the Great Spectre came back to life, leaving our hero terrified because it was a monstrous, cursed giant that seemed too big for them to ever defeat. A question that they shared with their viewers. Instant Beauty told them to run, but the hero said there was no place left to hide. She had to remind him that the system was pushing them toward the safe zone in the map center, while a startled manager promised to hide inside the hero's body to avoid running. While one viewer blamed him for riding on the hero's back, another had to tell him to respect his elders. As a monster lunged toward them, our heroes took off, running for their lives. After running forever, they finally reached the center of the map. But they arrived worn out, and soon the madman noticed something strange about how small the moon looked when they first got there, which made the old man decide to leave his body. Socrates felt a wave of joy when his streamer finally reached a conclusion. Realizing the undead couldn't pass the center of the dungeon, the hero figured the answer was the moon, which annoyed the crowd since he kept bringing up the 10 symbols of longevity even though he was technically right. Go-sun remembered that the monsters would be freer as the light faded, making the center safe since it held the moon's eternal glow, even though it was just a copy. But the girl said the light was fading even though the moon hadn't changed shape, so the hero figured it must be growing bigger, right when our heroes were spotted by the Great Spectre. The protagonist said they might just have a way out of this mess. So, the girl asked him to show her the way. Go-sun showed that as the moon grew bigger, its light grew dimmer. He compared it to a light bulb hidden in many bags, which made the lady realize they had to tear away the extra layers so the moon could finally shine with all its power. Just then, something started sprouting from the giant zombie's hand. A pair of terrifying tentacles shot up into the light to snatch the swordsman, leaving the lady completely under their control. But she didn't quit. Instead, she pulled out her sword and stabbed the tentacle. The giant, racked with agony, hurled her down and smashed her into the ground. The protagonist rushed to check on her, but when she didn't stir, the audience panicked, thinking she was lost and that a cry for help was coming next. The streamer saw that fighting the monster meant certain death, so he chose the sensible path and threw his spear at the moon high above. He took a deep breath, then threw his weapon as hard as he could, sending it soaring high into the sky. Just as the spear looked like it was about to touch the moon, it suddenly dropped back to the ground. Gung suddenly realized he hadn't pushed hard enough just as the light started to fade. So, one viewer thought that the Please Save Me stream was finally over. Socrates told him to buy the unbreakable spear, so the young man begged him to get it for him instead. The philosopher calmly declared he wouldn't ruin his streamer for no reason, while the hero started panicking as the great specter closed in. The old man didn't care, saying he won't waste his money on silly ideas and that I should be saved, because if I don't come up with a genius idea, I'll die right here. With his friend gone and his other option out of reach, the young guy found himself in a really bad spot. So, he chose to make a quick, last-ditch effort. As he hurled his weapon with every ounce of strength toward the monster, the crowd gasped in awe as the streamer's mighty throw slashed through the giant zombie's tentacles. Then a spear flew straight for the skull of the undead. Just as the crowd expected, the spear shattered against the mighty specter's strength. That meant our spearman had lost the tool he needed to fight. Then the monster whipped his tentacles around to strike again. But the hero refused to give up, so he narrowly twisted away from the monster's scary extra arms, just in time, and landed right beside the now-sleeping beauty. Go-Insum then snatched up her unbreakable sword to slice off a writhing tentacle, thrilling the audience as her favorite streamer fought for his life, and watching the great specter go wild with bloodlust made everyone hold their breath. Yet our hero didn't let fear win. Instead, he channeled his full strength and focus into level 3 to stand his ground. And so, the young man sprinted straight at the terrifying creature. Sure, he had found a flaw he could exploit, just like his own. The big monster flailed its strong tentacles to defend itself, but the hero flew right through the air and cut every single one off. The hero felt so nervous that the monster was almost right there. Suddenly, tentacles snatched his feet and lifted him up into the air. Goins was shocked to be caught off guard by the attack, even though he had already turned on his level 3 strength and focus. Suddenly, the little one was knocked violently onto the ground, so hard he coughed up blood. The beast hoisted him up into the air once more and hurled him away, making everyone think the streamer was never going to leave alive. The throw was so strong it knocked the hero right down beside Johansson, and some viewers thought that looked cute. As the monsters rushed forward while the onlookers watched in awe at the protagonist's stillness, his heart suddenly pounded wildly right before his final moment, awakening the power of iron will. With that, every hurt the hero had suffered vanished completely. Gaung finally woke up just as 3 minutes were left, discovering that every single one of his stats had gone up. With that, the hero stood up again, amazed to be back after facing death, and excited by his audience who wanted to see his iron will in action, but disappointed to find that even with his powers doubled, he still couldn't beat the great specter and had to aim for the moon once more. Right then, the zombie lunged at him. This time, the tentacles were sliced through with such ease that the giant beast screamed in pain right before our eyes. He knew he couldn't stab the moon with the broken blade in his hand, so he needed to find that expensive spear instead. But when he turned to ask Socrates for help, the man vanished to teach the hero a hard lesson. But right when he thought all hope was gone, a mysterious stranger handed him a gift. It was Johansson who stepped up and handed him just enough cash to buy the unbreakable spear. The hero turned to his partner for a thumbs up, which left him confused until she explained that even if they were doomed to die, they should still pour their souls into their final fight, a message that was truly for her own good. With only 30 seconds left before the 180-second limit for Iron Will, the lady grabbed her sword back to stall the creatures while telling him to destroy the moon. So, the hero headed to the shop to buy the weapon he wanted. And just like that, Sami grabbed the unbreakable spear with crazy power, leaving him totally amazed. The streamer pulled himself back together. He sprinted toward the monster the lady was trying to hold off, leaving her in pure terror, while the great specter swung its massive hand to crush him. But he dodged at the last second and leaped up the creature's terrifying arm. The ghost lunged to crush the bug crawling near its head, but the tiny creature darted away too fast to be caught. Once he reached the shoulder, Goins leaped into the air, bounced off the giant zombie's head like a trampoline to soar even higher, and squeezed his grip tight on his unbreakable spear while pouring every ounce of his strength into the move. Just before Yuan-san threw the object, he was stunned to realize the hero had been planning to use the giant to gain height all along. As the spear flew toward its mark, the huge specter stared in shock, unable to believe what its ghostly eyes saw. The spear struck the moon, cracking the giant sphere until it shattered and freed the trapped light. Now that the moon's layers were broken and it shone brightly, the old watcher stepped in to help the confused new users understand what was happening. Instant Beauty was so shocked she couldn't believe what she saw, and the two Greek philosophers were just as stunned. As the horde of the undead felt great pain, the darkness around them began to break apart. Thanks to our hero's amazing skills, he landed safely on the ground. Go-sun was so happy to find that even the big shadow couldn't stand up against the moon's bright light. He then looked at his pet turtle and offered it the giant as a meal. The spirit turtle started swallowing the giant creature whole. With the turtle finally dead, the dungeon was fully conquered and it was time to feast. After burning through so much energy, the little turtle had finally earned its chance to advance to the next level, but to truly evolve with all its soul essence, it needed to find a rare Wraith Soul Stone. The protagonist was hooked when the system told him Iron still had 5 seconds to go. With that, the streamer knew for sure he was going to die. Even so, he couldn't help but smile as the comments praised his hard work and welcomed him into the afterlife, making the whole adventure feel incredibly fun. Just then, he remembered the power of life energy. Everyone froze in shock when the heroes suddenly remembered the heavenly bamboo fruit was right there. Just as the clock for his iron will ran out, our hero started taking it. The protagonist felt pain tearing through his entire body so badly that he coughed blood and collapsed to the floor. As soon as everyone saw the terrible sight, they rushed to him, but after a quick check, Socrates knew the young man wasn't actually dead. His bewildered student, who had gone off to play bait, asked for an explanation because he was confused. Later, the streamer finally woke up, bewildered as the chat shouted that his lucky escape was over. With that, our hero turned to his grumpy turtle and saw it had been quietly fixing him up while he slept. The cheering crowd loved getting to see their favorite streamer again after the manager explained he'd been gone all day. After the old man explained that surviving a fight with the Great Spectre was insane, even when the game was set to the weakest rank, because he was an elite warrior just below the leader, he told the protagonist that he had obtained the unique giant essence, which the protagonist remembered as a soul stone. The Great Spectre's advanced soul stone holds the creature's spirit inside, letting anyone with a soul extractor steal a few of its random powers. The thing that seemed like a special feature actually felt more like a hidden skill for our hero as he asked where the soul extractors were. So the philosopher showed how the first 6 dungeons would let him grab one of those items, leaving the fans buzzing with excitement for the next leg of Please Save Me. Goenong thought the intel he needed was a top secret like everything else, but Socrates pointed out that anything so obvious can't possibly be a secret. The streamer figured he'd need an evolution stone to upgrade his mythical turtle. He was also pretty surprised to find that his iron will, the skill he had refused to use much, had leveled up on its own. The famous Greek thinker later cheered on the hero's amazing act. When the old man complained that the dungeon was too dangerous, the heroine reminded him that if he died there, it would all be over for him. Our hero asked where Yuanten was, and then quickly guessed that she had led him straight to dungeons 1 through 6. But to his surprise, Socrates told him she was still stuck at the exits. Instant Beauty, who honored the unconscious man by letting our hero take first place since his help was vital to defeat the dungeon. The protagonist was shocked by the very words the philosopher remembered from a girl. Soon the 2 streamers were back together, and the girl explained that she thought the boy was lost until her mouth-to-mouth kisses saved him, leaving our hero wild with excitement at the memory of her lips on his. Just as he feared, his own self-reflection saved him again, causing everyone to burst out laughing at his jokes. So she let our hero leave the dungeon first and take the top spot. The hero couldn't believe she'd let him go first, so today she pushed him to leave before she made her choice. The protagonist said goodbye to his manager, who gave his student a warning not to act silly again. With that settled, the streamers waved goodbye until next time, delighting the chat as they teased how wild their first meeting had been. Once the path was clear, the girl finally walked out of the dungeon. He stepped into room 1 through 6, just as the system announced that only 40 people could enter the next dungeon. But just then, a strange notification popped up that left him confused because he had somehow earned the praise of the King of Hell, and the comments were full of bafflement. It was clear that no one had ever beaten this dungeon on the hardest setting in over 1,300 years. Socrates also handed him 100 balloons, a sight that left the rest of the audience in awe. Because our hero was the first of 50 adventurers to clear dungeons 1 through 5. The shopkeeper has given him a 50% off coupon. Please Save Me had to choose between the blue door and the red one the crowd loved. So he chose to listen to them, feeling sure his decision wouldn't change the outcome. Just like that, our hero found himself in Red Town, where he could head straight to the shop. Gown felt uneasy because everything around him was red, so he put his path away in his inventory to let it rest, and then an odd-looking man opened the door, attacked him the moment he saw the protagonist, and the crowd realized that Stranger was the dungeon's main character, the soft giant. The giant man charged at our hero, who was first amazed by his huge size, but then even more shocked by how fast he moved to close the gap. Our hero barely managed to twist out of the way right before the giant's massive fist slammed down. As the hero tried to explain he wasn't the man was looking for, the giant accused him of running away and charged him 10 more, only for the soft giant to ignore him and assume the young man was trying to lure him into a fight. He assumed he had no time to waste with a madman, so he ran away, which only made the other guy even angrier. The streamer peeked into the shop and found only strange items like nutrition tonic, sleeping pills, and therapy services that our hero didn't know how to use. With that, he was snatched by the shirt and hoisted high by the soft giant before crashing down hard onto the ground. The small drop hurt our hero, but the pain vanished fast as the giant man suddenly remembered how much the hero owed him. Then the madman charged our hero with even more rage, shouting that he'd originally planned to use a knife, before slamming a bottle into him with a mighty blow. The impact was so powerful that our hero, stunned to see the bottle survive his unbreakable spear, was left shaking from the shock. Fueled by fury, the soft giant swung at our hero, who scrambled to argue and fight back until a harmless bottle knocked his mighty weapon from his grasp, leaving him shaking and helpless. Then the madman smashed our hero on the head with his trusty bottle, dragging the unconscious man inside while the crowd cheered, and later we saw the soft giant cooking dinner over the spearman who was knocked out on the table. Just then, he jolted awake, battered and dizzy, with no idea of where he was. The crowd cheered as the big, gentle giant scared the streamer, then handed a meal to our hero. The wild cook then begged me to save him from eating 3 meals a day, which totally confused him since we were strangers. Even with all that, he simply couldn't take his eyes off the rice that looked so delicious. Gounsong figured that by using the shop's special mind-healing magic, he could save the soft giant. So, with no other choice, our hero had to eat the rice and share it with the madman. But the soft giant soon noticed something strange because our hero had a look of fish on his face. Just then, the cook who had grown too big slipped right into his own pot. This was the result of the trickster's clever plan, where he slipped sleeping pills into the soft giant's food. The great specter slayer started to question the silly reason he lost to a huge cook, wondering if his defeat was meant to happen. So he tried to run, but when he found the doors and windows locked, he threw a chair at the window, only to have it bounce back and hit him on the head while the phantom laughed at him. So he called Hansen first, only to find the line dead. This led the streamer to believe his partner had picked the blue room. Next, the hero snatched the bottle from the table to let the old man taste his own medicine. But just as he swung the bottle with every ounce of strength he had, he was stunned to find it stopped dead by a barrier known as clan protection. Our hero, clueless about his own weakness, kept swinging at the giant with all his might, only to miss and earn a round of laughs from the crowd. He stepped forward, believing the makeshift tool in his hand held magical power. So he swung a plate at the unconscious old man, only to have a system window pop up and reveal that his silly plate was actually a soul extractor of normal grade. The evil hero ripped the soul stone out of the great specter and jammed it into the extractor to pull it free from its tight grip. Just like that, the hero gained the great specter's hunting instincts, a rare power to spot life energy from far away, but the system promised that this gift would only grow stronger once she fully leveled it up. The streamer called this trait useless because he was disappointed by it. And some noticed that the kitchen he was in looked normal, except for a mysterious door that stood open. The room behind it left our hero amazed, revealing that the old man was surprisingly rich, surrounded by dozens of valuable items. This tiny room was truly the secret dungeon from levels 1 to 6, where clan members found a treasure trove of weapons and helpful items. The hero quickly saw that the gear he had was working far better than he'd ever expected. But then he stumbled across an unbreakable spear that only cost 3,000 balloons, and he was left totally amazed. When he saw the glass was blocking him from grabbing the spear, the crowd started making fun of him and doubting if it really belonged to him. The streamer took a scratch on the spear and showed it as his own mark. Then he understood that the soft giant had taken everything in the room. After a moment of thought, he reached for the bottle on the table and whispered to himself that he wasn't doing anything wrong since he was just taking back what was his own. So the hero poured every bit of his strength into the bottle to free his beloved weapon. But when the bottle hit the glass, it bounced right back into his face and made the audience laugh. As he rolled on the ground in pain, the system told him he could buy the spear at half price with his dungeon discount, which made him furious. So he quickly bought it to finish exploring the room. Just then, he was stunned to see a 4,000 balloon item that was even more expensive than his unbreakable spear, and while he thought it was useless, the audience knew it wasn't. The dungeon escapee pointed out that even cheap and useful things like the evolution stone for 500 balloons were on sale. He couldn't wait to touch it because of his little pet. But right then, The great specter's eerie instinct woke up the moment life energy touched its range. Akira spun around in shock, right before a bottle hit him and the gentle giant knocked him flat on the floor. Soon, the grumpy cook told the young man he had to finish his food or else face another big plate. But when Jinsung mentioned they'd eaten fried rice yesterday, the giant cook insisted they'd have it again the next day. Before the hero vowed to eat only that meal for the rest of his life, the young man asked for a little variety, which only made the old man furious because he had expected thanks, not rudeness. When the young man saw the giant old man so angry, he just decided to calmly enjoy his food. "Please save me. I've already spent 2 weeks with the soft giant." The young man asked if they could eat from separate plates, but the fat man said no, convinced once again that he had been tricked by sleeping pills. Then it became night. The hero asked his kidnapper if he wanted him to do the dishes, but the kidnapper claimed he ran the kitchen and demanded the hero clean the floors instead. The hero didn't hesitate and got straight to work. As he was busy, he got a warning that someone else had entered Dungeon 1-6, so he had to run for his life and now found himself with 5 rivals to escape. The grumpy cook, now covered in weeds, glared at the hero who just asked where the dinner was. The young man's second question snapped the annoyance right into anger. The crowd laughed hard as the hero walked away, annoyed that his kidnapper kept asking about dinner, even though he already knew the answer. So the streamer got back to thinking about what was just happening. By watching his kidnapper, our hero finally figured out how to open the door. He even wondered if the other village would have been a better fit for a longevity symbol, but he was stuck in the red village where every dungeon stuck to just one theme. Our hero was convinced the clue he sought had to be hiding in both villages at the same time. Thinking that blue and red mix to make purple, the spearman noticed the most expensive thing in the room was a purple amethyst. Even though the hero had to hold his breath and stay calm, he needed to check if the thing really worked before spending his money on it. On that same day, inside the little house, they were cooking fried rice. The hero asked the grumpy chef, who hated being called that, if he knew about protecting clams, and the question was so startling that the chef burned the rice. The gentle giant wanted to know how the boy had learned those words, wondering if he'd just seen them for the first time when he handed him the sleeping pills. The old mangrove got so mad when he saw the young one trying to kill him, but he begged to be told that he was still alive. When asked once more about the clan's safety, the elder told a tale linking it to an ancient legend of the village alliance. But when the hero asked what kind of story this was, the chef simply said he didn't believe in such tales. Not long after, dinner was finally ready. "Please save me," he asked about the fried rice, while the old man urged him to eat in silence. But even though the hero offered the chef the first bite, the chef insisted on going second, and that made our hero fear the chef had slipped sleeping pills into his food again. But with no other choice, the streamer had to take that first bite and grab the bottle as he saw the chef, who could do anything. The softer giant thought everything was safe because the hero was calmly eating the rice. But the very first bite sent his spoon skittering across the floor and plunged him into the rice, leaving the crowd in pure shock. Just then, our hero stepped out from the kitchen. The crowd cheered the turtle for its clever trick of hiding sleeping pills in rice, and the hero amazed everyone by explaining how a special tonic from the store kept him wide awake for a full day without any sleep. As he stepped into the treasure room, the hero felt suddenly heavy with sleep even though he was bursting with energy. He also decided to buy one special thing before chasing after the very expensive purple ore. With just a few clicks of a button, our hero instantly became the proud owner of a powerful evolution stone. Duty decided to wait until later because no one knew how long the old man would sleep. So our hero rushed to buy the priciest thing he could find, only to discover his beloved spear was gone and realize the gentle giant must have hidden it. Even though he was angry, he chose to grab the amethyst first. Even with that hope, the server still worried that this pricey item might not buy his freedom, and if he lost it all, he'd be stuck eating fried rice forever with no one left to watch. Just as he reached for the item, our hero's hand started shaking. And he took a big risk and spent every last penny of his money on just one thing. Just like the speedster holding the amethyst, he now had to figure out how it worked. After a long moment of thought, he started scouring the whole room for any clue that might help him get out. But since the search failed badly, the hero changed tactics and started shaking the item in his hand. But in doing that, something strange started to happen. Just as the crystal emerged from the stone and the hero's hope began to fade, a noise from the sleeping cook made the fans think he had woken up. But in truth, it was just the sound of him snoring. When she saw this, the streamer felt a wave of relief wash over her. So he walked into the shop to take a look, even though he was sure there wasn't anything useful inside. Then suddenly, he noticed something strange. The very first letters on the shop items spelled out a word, and the crowd cheered because they knew this was the first clue to the answer. So our hero took a closer look at the prices to find the second clue. With that being discovered, the young one realized that he